Mike Pence will reportedly fight a subpoena issued by Jack Smith, the special prosecutor investigating Donald Trump about classified documents and the January 6th insurrection. Intrigued? Then click that like and subscribe and enjoy the video. Donald Trump's former vice president and potential 2024 presidential rival, Mike Pence, is back in the news today. And it really has nothing to do this time with classified documents, which they found at his Indiana home. This actually has something to do with an older, and I would argue more important news story, which is about Mike Pence's relationship with Donald Trump, the on-again, off-again, love-hate relationship that they've had, particularly towards the end of the Trump administration, and Mike Pence's refusal to, attempt to steal the 2020 election away from Joe Biden and hand it to Donald Trump. The fact that Mike Pence was targeted by MAGA supporters for death during the January 6th insurrection. And then really the Democratic-led House of Representatives Select Committee investigation into January 6th, which occurred, basically from 2021 until the end of last year. So Mike Pence, as the former vice president, was one of, if not the most important hypothetical witness to the events surrounding January 6th, other than Donald Trump himself. And when he was asked last year he wrote a memoir. Mike Pence wrote a memoir, right? And consequently, he was given all kinds of great headline interviews, not just on right-wing media, but also mainstream media as well, to hawk his book. And during the course of the conversations, he was asked about classified documents and January 6th and all these things. And one of the questions that was posed to him was, look, the House of Representatives is investigating Donald Trump about the January 6th situation. Would you go before the House Select Committee and answer their questions? Because there's, compelling public interest. And Mike Pence said no. He shut it down. He was like, look, no, I just don't think it would be appropriate. I'm a former vice president. That's part of the executive branch. It's actually the second highest person in the executive branch, if not the federal government as a whole. And we have this notion of separation of powers. Congress and the executive branch are supposed to be equal, co-equal. And the idea that Congress should be able to basically haul in a former vice president and interrogate him would violate the notion of separation of powers. And now, I had some problems with that, namely that, again, Mike Pence is no longer a sitting vice president. He's a former vice president. So to me, those positions are meaningfully different. I certainly would understand that it should be really, really, really difficult for Congress to interrogate effectively a sitting vice president, let alone a sitting president. I get that, right? There's supposed to be separation of powers, and with good reason. But you're not a sitting vice president anymore. You're a former vice president, right? So your relevance, right, the idea that you can appeal to the separation of powers, to me, it was a lot less compelling. And so anyway, that was his justification. I saw a bit of where he was coming from, but I was also like, man, you're former, you're not current, right? So the appeal to separation of powers, it doesn't really work in your situation. But anyway, that was his answer. And then, shortly thereafter, it was mentioned that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor investigating Donald Trump about January 6th and classified documents that were found in Mar-a-Lago, that he wanted to talk to Mike Pence. So and I think we did a video about it. The timing was hilarious. He was basically like, no, I will not answer questions before Congress. And then Jack Smith, who is not a special prosecutor for the legislative branch, he's an agent, technically an independent agent of the executive branch under the purview of the Attorney General, he's like, well, I want to talk to you. So that I found funny at the time. And then nothing was reported about it until recently, in which we learned that Jack Smith was issued a subpoena by Jack Smith, the special prosecutor in question. Former Vice President Mike Pence was subpoenaed by Jack Smith, the special counsel investigating former Donald Trump, Axios confirmed this past Thursday. The move is one of the most aggressive yet in the investigation into allegations that Trump and his allies tried to overturn the 2020 election. While it was not immediately clear what information special counsel Jack Smith was seeking, the subpoena comes after months of negotiation between Pence's legal team and federal prosecutors, according to ABC News, which was the first to report the story. Representatives for Pence declined to comment, and the special counsel's office did not immediately respond to Axios' request for comment. Okay, so again, Jack Smith says, hey, look, I know you said you don't want to answer questions before the House January 6th Select Committee, but I want to talk to you. And then that was, again, like October, November of last year. Things have been quiet for the past few months, but apparently they were negotiating behind the scenes. And now finally, Jack Smith has issued a subpoena, which is a hell of a move. You know, you have a special prosecutor issuing a subpoena to a guy who is the second highest ranking member of the Trump administration, higher than the cabinet, higher than the chief of staff, a guy who was the stone's throw away from the presidency. It's a bold move, and I like the speed with which Jack Smith is finally acting. He certainly seems more aggressive than Merrick Garland. But that's one part of the story. The second part of the story is Pence is reportedly going to fight the subpoena that was issued by Jack Smith. So former Vice President Mike Pence is expected to fight a subpoena by the special counsel investigating Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the election. Pence's argument for fighting the special counsel subpoena will focus on his role as former president of the Senate, okay? Because that is one of the constitutional roles of the vice president, even though basically over time that it's still a de jure responsibility, so on paper, responsibility of the vice president, but because the vice president is more under the purview of the executive branch and is usually involved with cabinet meetings and helping the president govern, presiding over the Senate is basically something done for like the Senate pro tem president, things like that. So members of the Senate basically do the day-to-day presiding over the Senate. Very rarely will the vice president step in, usually to break a tie or to certify the results of an election, right? As was the case on January 6, 2021. So according to this reporting, his argument for resisting in court, resisting the subpoena, will focus on that, and thus a member of the legislative branch protecting him from certain Justice Department requests. His argument will likely not center on executive privilege. I think this is hilarious. We'll see how it goes. I guess it's entirely possible that this will prevail in court, but notice the tap dance. So when the House, wanted to talk to him, Mike Pence issued or appealed the separation of powers. He's like, look, I'm a member of the executive branch. It would violate the separation of powers for a member of one branch to question a high-ranking member of another branch. And now that another person in the executive branch, Jack Smith, special prosecutor, is like, okay, well, I'm issuing a subpoena, and there's no separation of powers here. You and I were, employees of the same branch, nothing to separate. I want you to talk to me. Now Mike Pence is expected to go, well, I also have, constitutional responsibilities to the first branch, the legislative branch, and so there's a separation of powers situation here. It's a tap dance. It's pure hypocrisy, right? We'll see how it prevails in court, but again, that to me suggests a genuine anxiety over talking with Jack Smith. I hope this argument crashes and burns. I hope that he gets it'd be really good if the Democratic-led Congress were somehow able to issue a subpoena, and that way Mike Pence would be trapped. He'd have a foot in both worlds. Now the members of the legislative branch want to talk to you. Now the member of the executive branch wants to talk to you. But I don't know how to go. We need to follow it from here, but just note the cowardice, note the hypocrisy. These guys will do anything to avoid answering compelling, reasonable questions from an investigator. Hey you! Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, and I hope that you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. And if you absolutely hated the video, the best revenge for you is also to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. That'll teach me. If you want to share an opinion or share some feedback, go ahead and leave a comment, all right? 2023 is a year of change, hence the aggressive rebrand and commitment to new content. Inspired by my friends Luke Beasley and STV Philly, my personal goal for this channel is to hit 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So I'm hoping you'll do me a solid by spreading the word and the videos to potential fans and hate watchers alike. And in the meantime, we'll be pondering politics again with you very soon.